Real YouTube is swear pants while recording. I always wear pants when I record. Just kidding. Oh, my camera's messed up. Why? No, this way. Okay, should be better. Okay. Hello. What's going on, YouTube? It's your boy. I don't even know where that started. I realize I've started saying that a lot, and I want you to know that I don't like it. It's just happening. Anyway, so there I was thinking about this. I've actually planned on making this video for a while, but for one reason or another, I just never really got around to it. So we're doing it now. Here's the context. I'm gonna give you the context because I'm a context guy. Haha. Here's the deal. Isle of Armor came out, right? Isle of Armor. I feel like that's, I don't know, Boston? I don't know. Not very good Boston, but something. Anyway, the Isle of Armor came out recently. Somewhat recently, and added a whole bunch of new fully evolved Pokemon and some Eviolite Pokemon as well that are viable. I've been planning on making this list for a while, kind of just going through, talking about the Pokemon that were added. I think we're going to need an each here. Let's just do this now. Roy, GB, Indigo? Red, orange, yellow, yellow, green, blue. Oh, wait. That's not what I wanted. Hang on. Add row below. Okay. Okay, added a whole bunch of new Pokemon, right? And it's gonna, like, the Pokemon that they added, obviously, already from what I've seen, are significantly impacting the metagame. This isn't like you added, you know, one Pokemon here. I mean, we already saw earlier this format, with the additions of Incineroar, with the additions of certain Gigantamax Pokemon, with the additions of Venusaur. Even adding one Pokemon in can significantly alter, a metagame, right? When they added Venusaur in, Torkoal teams shot up in popularity. Venusaur was on a huge number of teams. It had a bunch of different items, had a bunch of success. Incineroar obviously also saw a lot of play. Certain Gigantamax Pokemon totally changed in usage. For example, Colossal was able to do well in some tournaments, primarily after, not exclusively, but primarily after its Gigantamax form was released. Lapras went from 0 usage to a ton of usage. Tons of examples, right? Even adding one form on a Pokemon, or not even a new Pokemon sometimes, but just giving it a Gigantamax form, or even a move sometimes will be enough to change a Pokemon's usage. And now we're in a situation where they didn't add one Pokemon. They added, I mean, I think over 100 new ones in total. These are just the fully evolved forms of everything that they added. So I figured I'd go through, kind of just give you guys my opinion of what we're dealing with here, and how good each of these Pokemon is relatively compared to everybody else. So yeah, the one thing I'll say is S tier is going to be like very, very good. A tier is also very good. B tier is like most people would agree is good, not broken, not like incredible, but like still good. C tier is going to be my own personal, like I think this has potential. So for example, a Pokemon that might go into C tier is like Clotzer, right? Where like Clotzer, most people probably don't think is very good, but I personally have faith in it. D tier is going to be just straight up bad, and then E tier is going to be like, only use this if it's your favorite Pokemon, if you're trying to win. If you want to play for fun, like, use whatever you want, but if you're trying to win, I really would strongly recommend anything in, honestly, D or E, and most of C as well. But you can do whatever you want, but E tier is like, I'm sorry, this Pokemon is your favorite Pokemon. Anyway, let's start. So Alakazam is the first one. That's an easy B tier in my opinion. I would never have put Alakazam up this high before. However, with the addition of Expanding Force to its move pool, it's actually very strong. Magic Guard's a great ability. It has a couple good items. They also gave it Speed Swap. It may have had Speed Swap in the past. I'm not entirely sure, actually. But, yeah, with the new additions to its move pool, primarily Expanding Force, and its really high base speed stat relative to the format, I think it has potential. I think most people would say that, like, it's not a Pokemon that if you see a team preview, you're happy to deal with, you know? You're not like, oh, yes, Alakazam. I'm so happy to see this most of the time, unless you're running Mono Dark or something. Yeah, it's a scary Pokemon, especially given that it's almost always going to be paired with a Psychic Terrain Setter in DD. Meaning, like, yeah, I mean, if it's paired with a Psychic Terrain Setter, you can't even use priority moves to take it, like Sucker Punch or even Shadow Sneak to take advantage of its low physical defense. So it's not a Pokemon without its flaws. I'm not going to say that it doesn't have flaws or weaknesses, but in general, I think it's pretty good. Amoonguss is the best Pokemon they added. I'm just going to tell you that right now. If I were doing this completely, like if the tiers were, like, evenly spaced with, like, comparing S tier all to other S tiers, like, Amoonguss would probably have to be in its own tier. Amoonguss is by far the best Pokemon they added. And they actually buffed it as well. So Amoonguss, for those of you who don't know, is one of the best support Pokemon of all time. It gets access to both Spore and Rage Powder, which are two phenomenal moves in VGC. Rage Powder being a follow me that doesn't work on grass types, and Spore being able to 100% accurately put anything to sleep. the metagame will, in my opinion, very significantly revolve around Amoonguss. It has pretty good typing overall. Grass and Poison gives it some nice resistances. It doesn't have a 4x weakness. Fair bit of weaknesses, like it's weak to Flying, Ice, Fire, Psychic, and probably a couple other ones that I'm forgetting off the top of my head, but it also has some really nice resistances, just to Water, to Grass, to Fighting, it's neutral to Poison, unlike most Grass types. Yeah, it's a really, really strong Pokemon, and when I talked about the buff they gave it, that's going to be Pollen Puff. Pollen Puff is now, like, traditionally Amoonguss run either Giga Drain or Grass Knot in restricted formats, or Sludge Bomb. The move pulls typically Rage Powder, Spore, and then you pick 2 out of Protect, Giga Drain, Sludge Bomb, or whatever Grass move you want. However, with Pollen Puff, it means that Amoonguss can play even more of a supportive role. For those of you who don't know, Pollen Puff is a 90 base power bug. It's like Bug Buzz on the opponent. I believe it's 90 base power if you use it on the opponent. However, if you target your partner, it's Heal Pulse. It's one of the best moves in terms of design. It's one of my favorite moves, and it's a very, very powerful move, and primarily doesn't see a lot of usage. Like just because Bug Pokemon aren't that good, and Bug Pokemon is an Bug type as an attacking type is not super strong. It doesn't have great coverage. However, on a support Pokemon like Amoonguss, you could either drop Protect or your offensive move, and yeah, just get another really good move in your arsenal. And this is only made stronger when you consider that Amoonguss, like, it has really good staying power, but it also can really slow the pace of the game. For example, if you Spore one of your opponent's Pokemon, next turn they won't be able to attack with that Pokemon, giving you ample opportunity to start, like, hitting your partner with Heal Pulse, or continuing to click Spore. Like, you have the option. So I think it's by far and away the best Pokemon they added. Azumarill's next. Let's go ahead and drop that in the A tier. Now, if in a couple of weeks you told me Azumarill was S tier, I would believe you. If you told me it was B tier, I'd also believe you. Right now, I think Azumarill is very good. I tested it a little bit, and I played a few games with it, and I thought I felt really strong. In the past, Azumarill typically ran Belly Drum sets. I don't think you need to run Belly Drum anymore, personally. I think Belly Drum might even be weaker now, because, like, I remember when I ran Belly Drum Azumarill to win a regional in 2015 rule set, so, like, no, like, there were, like, Megas and Legendaries, but not restricted Legendaries. Like, I remember +5 Azumarill Aqua Jet was maybe a roll on Kangaskhan, or, like, maybe, I don't know, like, I remember having to worry about hitting, like, Okoing Mega Kangaskhan, and that was, like, Mega Kangaskhan's a bulky Pokemon for sure, but when you factor in Dynamax, like, Azumarill +6 is not, with Aqua Jet's not going to KO, like, a bunch of Dynamax Pokemon, I would guess. Like, yeah, actually, there's no way it KOs a bunch of Dynamax Pokemon, so, yeah, so I'm not convinced that Belly Drum is the best set, but, and I think an Assault Vest set can be good. I think there's a lot of room to experiment. I think it's also a pretty good Dynamax user. I think it takes advantage of Dynamax pretty well. The reason is that it has huge power, and we're going to talk about more about huge power / we're going to talk about Alolan Marowak, and I think that one's very good as well. And when you consider, like, that it doubles your attack stat, every power increase you get is also doubled as well compared to your base attack. So I think Pokemon like Azumarill and, spoilers, Alolan Marowak are very strong, because if you Dynamax them, they're already powerful in their base form thanks to their abilities, and when you Dynamax them, it just becomes, like, it just increases the amount of damage you're doing, which is a significant increase when you consider, like, everything is doubled. So yeah. Next up, we have Blissey. Now, Blissey's not the worst Pokemon. It's also not anywhere near the best. Singles players are mad. I'm sorry. You're gonna continue to be mad. I'm gonna tilt you guys super hard later. I'm actually really looking forward to it. Oh, I love tilting the singles players. Anyway, Blissey. It's a bad Pokemon. I know if you're from singles, you might be difficult to comprehend. But here's the thing: in doubles, you have 2 Pokemon on the field at the same time, meaning you're very likely to have a physical attacker on the field at any given moment, given that you have 2 Pokemon, and given that even some Pokemon go mixed. And physical Pokemon are pretty standard on VGC teams. So, Blissey, although it's, like, you know, cheesy or whatever, like, and, you know, it has amazing special bulk, it has All My Friends Are Dead syndrome. Unlike in singles, where you can always switch it into sponge attacks, in doubles, you can just ignore it, KO all the partners, and then deal with it at the end, because it doesn't do anything except sit there. It's not a good Pokemon, and D tier is generous. It could be an E tier. Chansey, I'm going to put one higher than Blissey. Chansey teams, in the past, like, had some usage. In 2017, they were somewhat popular. There was actually a period where, like, people were really mean to Chansey players online. Sorry. Yeah, basically there were teams in 2017, some 2018 as well, that took advantage of Chansey. They would basically run this strategy with, I think it was Carbink. I feel like there were shuckled versions of it as well. But effectively the way the strategy worked is you would guard split your Chansey, make it bulky, and then run Defense Curl, minimize Soft-Boiled, and maybe Seismic Toss or Toxic, I don't remember. Just make your Chansey basically unkillable. That was in the dark age of Timer for VGC, where we didn't have individual game timer, because in the past, like, strategies like that would be weak to timer, where, like, for example, I remember when I started playing, there was a strategy with, like, Audino and Chandelure and Whimsicott, where Audino would go for Trick Room as Whimsicott would Memento, one of the Pokemon, and then they'd go into Chandelure, and they would simple be minimized, and, like, it had, like, minimized Acid Armor, Calm Mind, and, like, Heat Wave or something, Shadow Ball, I don't remember. But you could just beat this strategy because it took so long to set up by stalling out the timer, and then they would lose because you'd have more Pokemon. However, in 2017, this is probably more than you guys care about Chansey, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. In 2017, there was no game timer. There was only a 50-minute round timer for all 3 games. So some people figured out you could still use that timer to beat the Chansey teams, but yeah, it definitely was an interesting situation. And Chansey, like, it did well. Like, it won some PCs and MSSs, and, like, I'm sure it saw some good, like, it had some results overall. It wasn't super great, but it definitely was viable at the very least, and it was something you had to be aware of. There was one period of time where you definitely had to be aware of / respect it, so... yeah, so for that reason, I'm putting Chansey up a tier higher than Blissey. It's bulkier than Blissey. It doesn't really need the item slot, in my opinion. And you could build a team around it. The reason why I don't think this is very good is, like, now with Dynamax, Minimize, which was one of the core gimmicks of Chansey, is not effective anymore. And I'm not even sure if it gets Seismic Toss or Toxic either, but yeah, actually probably gets Seismic Toss, but yeah. You can't run Minimize anymore, you shouldn't. It's not as good because Dynamax, and Dynamax ignores accuracy checks. So for that reason alone, I think Chansey's still pretty bad. Like, I think C and D tier are generous here. I could easily move them down and feel good about it, but will be nice. Bouffalant is next. Bouffalant I love. I've always liked Bouffalant, but it's not very good. It's just a normal type Pokemon. It does some damage. Like, it's a Pokemon that, like, if you had to build around it, you wouldn't be, like, devastated, but you really would you really rather have something else. Instead. So, yeah, I mean, I like Bouffalant, but D tier is, again, maybe generous. I'm going to reserve E tier for only, like, the very, very bad Pokemon. Clawzer's next. I like Clawzer. I think it has potential. I'm putting it in C tier. It has a great ability, which powers up Pulse moves, and with the addition of Terrain Pulse, you actually have, like, a pretty strong move. Like, if I am understanding it correctly, it's 150 base power. I assume it gets the Terrain boost on top of that as well, though it might not, so I'm not totally positive. But, yeah, it's a pretty strong move. And it gives it interesting coverage moves. For example, if you're in Clawzer with Rillaboom, you can, in theory, like, have Grass type powered up Grassy Terrain, or Grassy Terrain powered up Grass type 150 base power move, which is pretty strong. So I have faith in Clawzer. I think it could be pretty good. You'd have to be pretty intentional in your building around it, but I think it could still be interesting. It gets a lot of good pulse moves. Comfey, I would honestly like to put higher up. I'm going to put Comfey higher up. I've always liked Comfey. Comfey has a ton of potential. Out of these 3 so far, I'd say Comfey has the most potential. It has a really cool move, Floral Healing, and its healing moves get priority, so it has a lot of stuff going for it. It also is a pure Fairy type, which is good defensively. We have a second Grassy Terrain setter. Its move, Floral Healing, heals 50% on all Pokemon, but if you're in Grassy Terrain, it'll heal 2/3 HP instead, 66%. So basically, you can almost heal a Pokemon back to full with one move. However, it also has All My Friends Are Dead syndrome, so you have to figure out a way around that. I haven't looked too much into Comfey this format, but I do believe in it. I do think it's a cool Pokemon. As I already mentioned, there's cool support options. Like, you have Floral Healing, sure, but you also have Trick Room. Yeah, so I don't know. I think you can do some really interesting stuff with it. I have a lot of faith in it. Detonate is an E-tier mon, I think. I would never use Detonate by choice. It's better than Emolga, who I'm just going to do this preemptively. It's also very bad. Not good Pokemon at all. These are just like, they felt obligated to make electric rodent Pokemon, and so they did, and this is the result, but they shouldn't have made it. They were so concerned with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think about whether or not they should, or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, I don't really have much to say about these two. They're honestly just garbage. I know there's some people who really like these Pokemon. I'm sorry, they're bad. Druddigon, I honestly think is an E-tier Pokemon. Like, when you have Pokemon like Dragapult in the format, I would never use this thing. Like, I like Druddigon. It's one of my, anything from 2011, any Gen 5 Pokemon, I think I'm biased towards because odds are I tested them at some point. However, I just don't think you would use this thing. Like, it's so inferior to so many other Dragon types. Like, if a Pokemon is inferior to Flygon, you're going to have a bad time. Like, at least with Bouffalant, you have, like, Stab, Head Charge, and Reckless. With Druddigon, what do you have? Like, Rough Skin, Sheer Force is not good. I'm actually even going to put Dunsparce higher than Druddigon. I think Dunsparce, thanks to Serene Grace, you can do some gimmicky stuff with. Yeah, I don't know. I think you can do some gimmicky stuff with Dunsparce. Which gets Rock Slide, I think. It gets Headbutt. It gets Glare, which is a good move. It used to get Roost. I'm not sure if it still does. I have some faith in Dunsparce. I think, like, it's a bad Pokemon for sure, but you could definitely try and make it work. And people love Dunsparce, so, like, yeah, I'm sure, like, there are Dunsparce teams out there, but I wouldn't recommend it, but you definitely could try. Yeah. Executors, I'm putting them both in the C tier. I think they have potential. The thing is that the metagame isn't super favorable to them right now with, my favorite form of Executor is the base for me. 4 times weakness to Bug is kind of rough right now. It matches up positively against Amoonguss, but a lot of the other Pokemon in the format, like Togekiss, like Dragapult, like Incineroar, they all match up really positively against Executor. If we move more towards a format with like a lot of water types, like for example, rain formats, or formats where rain teams are kind of dominant, I think Executor could definitely see some usage, although with the addition of Hurricane on Kingdra, maybe not. But yeah, I think Executor has potential for sure, but I wouldn't expect it to be super good. Alolan Executor has different problems. It normally functions more as a sweeper rather than like as a wall, which is what regular Executor normally functions as. I don't really think of Alolan Executor as more of a Trick Room sweeper. It can be mixed, it can be just pure special. It has good coverage moves. But yeah, I just don't think it's that optimal as a sweeper. Like, I don't think it's that much better than Reuniclus, although it has some things going for it that Reuniclus doesn't. Maybe Alolan Executor you could argue is B tier, because with Dynamax, like, you can actually be kind of strong, I think. However, yeah, I'd have to see more of it to put it confidently higher up. I'm going to put Exploud in the C tier. That's probably generous. It's probably more of a D tier mon. It's a D tier mon, yeah. Like, I know Exploud is good in singles. When I found that out, I was really surprised. But I think Exploud has some usage in singles because, like, you can just do Specs Boom Burst. However, in doubles, like, Boom Burst hits its partner. So, like, and it gets a spread move reduction, so it's, like, not really worth it. It has some good coverage moves going for it, but, like, it's just not a good Pokemon. The stats aren't good. The coverage is good, but the stats really, I don't know, nerf it. So, yeah, I don't really have much to say about Exploud. Golduck, I think, is B tier. Golduck is another Pokemon kind of like Alakazam, where I feel like it has some potential. And I feel like it's a good Swift Swim user. It's a good Dynamax, like, target, I guess, because the water moves are really strong. Being a pure water-type Swift Swim user is nice. The other ones are all dual-type, which helps and hurts them. Like, Ludicolo, for example, isn't super hurt by the grass typing, but it gives it a bunch of weaknesses that it wouldn't have otherwise, especially flying type, which is kind of common, and bug and poison as well. Pokemon like Seismitoad only have one weakness, but the thing about being 4 times weak to a type is it always makes it risky to Dynamax. And Pokemon like Kingdra, who, Dragon is a good type, but makes you weak to Fairy and Dragon as well, and also gives you a 4 times, all 3 of those are 4 times weak to Freeze Dry, which with Lapras around is, like, kind of a big deal, although, like, it's not like your water-type Swift Swimmers are ever beating Lapras anyway, so, like, it doesn't really matter. Golduck, I think, it's a decent Swift Swim user. The coverage isn't great, but the typing is nice, and, yeah, it's just, like, a solid Swift Swim user. It also has some cool support moves, like Soak, and I think it's, like, Encore and Disable as well, so, yeah. Heracross, okay, cool, Heracross. So I'm going to put, oopsie, that's Marowak. Heracross, I think, is a C-tier Pokemon. These aren't ordered within the tiers, by the way. I'm just putting the most recent one in the back. Heracross, I don't know. I think it's interesting. It has some things going for it. Like, the stats aren't terrible. It has some powerful moves like Close Combat and Mega Horn, and the abilities of Guts and Moxie are both pretty solid. However, like, the 4 times weakness to flying, the overall not phenomenal bulk, and, like, the stats aren't bad, but they're, like, they don't really support it defensively. Like, they're decent. It has high base attack, and, like, the overall bulk isn't awful, but the 4 times weakness to flying and the weaknesses to Psychic, to Fire, is that it? Psychic, Fire, Flying? That's gotta be weak to more than that, right? Oh, to Fairy, yeah. Like, I don't know. Like, these are relatively common types. Flying, Fire, Fairy, and now Psychic is probably going to be on the uptick as well, thanks to Expanding Force. So, yeah, like, the stats combined with the poor... The average stats compared to the poor defensive typing, and the fact that Bug and Fighting, like, I don't know. Like, Bug is just not a good type. I don't know. I think C tier is generous. You could probably argue D. Speaking of D tier, Kangaskhan, not awful. Has some things going for it. You can do, like, Fake Out. It's, like, the only scrappy Fake Out user. You can do Icy Wind. You can do a couple other support moves. I wouldn't recommend using this thing. It's so outclassed by a lot of other Pokemon, and it doesn't have that much going for it now that it's lost its Mega. Kingdra, I'm going to put in the A tier. I'm not convinced that Kingdra is S tier just yet, personally. I do have faith in Kingdra. I think it's a good Pokemon. I think it will see a lot of play, or at least some play. However, like, it's unclear to me how good Kingdra really is just yet. So, although it could end up in the S tier, could stay in the A tier, or maybe it's a B tier Pokemon. Like, it's just too soon to say, in my opinion. So, I don't feel comfortable putting it any higher. Kingdra's main advantage is a good Swift Swim user. It uses Dragon and Water type attacks to do damage offensively. It has relatively decent special attack stat, and you can invest, like, you can use a Modest Nature because of Swift Swim, and you can run a Life Orb as well. Hits relatively hard. They also gave it Hurricane, which is a very big deal. Giving Kingdra Hurricane in a Dynamax format, it's a big deal specifically because it means that Kingdra can, as a Dynamax Pokemon, number 1, hit Grass types, which it wasn't able to do before, so you can do some big damage to Pokemon like Amoonguss or Rillaboom, who are going to be problematic for the rain teams. It also lets it function somewhat out of rain. Like, for example, you can use max airstream to raise your speed stat, and then start clicking max water to make, like, to basically to ensure that you don't need the rain up to outspeed things. Klefki, I think, is a B tier Pokemon. I brought Klefki to 2 tournaments. I got top 4 at one of them. I think top 32 at the other. Maybe top 64. I don't know. It's not a great Pokemon. It's a decent support Pokemon. It's got priority Thunder Wave. It gets priority screens. I typically have only used it in restricted formats. However, it gets play here and there for other in other formats. I don't feel comfortable putting Klefki lower. Top cut the World Championships in 2017, I believe. I think Sabas had it. It might have been Fede, but I think it was Sabas. It might have been both of them, actually. I don't remember. They had similar teams, but there were some differences. But yeah, I don't know. I think Klefki, like, great defensive typing in Steel and Fairy, 2 of the best typings in the game. 2 of my S tier typings, actually, if you remember my typing tier list video. But yeah, like, when you consider the good defensive typing and the fact that it's just a pure support Pokemon, I think it's kind of cool. You can run Switcheroo. I think it still gets that. You can run Thunder Wave, screens. Move Pool is probably a little lacking, but, you know, like, it's mostly just a support Pokemon. It might get Ally Switch, so if you want to be, you know, annoying, you can do that. I'm going to put Crocodile in the B tier. I like Crocodile. If you guys watched yesterday's video, you know that Justin does not like Crocodile. People are probably pretty torn on Crocodile, but there's some interesting things you can do with it. It gets Intimidate, Moxie, and Anger Point, all of which are good abilities. And when you... Thinking. Yeah, like, I don't know. When you Dynamax it, it has pretty good things going for it. They gave it some good new moves, like Lash Out is a really good move. Yeah, overall, I think it has a lot of things going for it. I wouldn't confidently say it's, like, a great Pokemon, but I also wouldn't confidently say it's a terrible one. It has won Worlds before, so, yeah, I don't know. I have faith in Crocodile. I think it could see some usage. Licky, I feel like it's kind of the same as Exploud. It's like, it's got a good ability in Cloud 9. It has some good coverage moves. The stats are really lacking, and it kind of has all my friends are dead syndrome. Like, its most useful role is probably Explosion, because it used to be the strongest explosion in the game. I think Savali passed it for strongest explosion in the game, but, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, it's not very good, in my opinion. Like, you can make it work. Like, you can do some stuff with it, thanks to its good coverage moves and overall good bulk. However, like, the lack of offenses really hurts. Lilligant's also a D tier Pokemon. Maybe E tier. Like, Lilligant is probably better than these, but I still strongly recommend you don't use it. Lilligant is just bad Venusaur. Like, it does almost nothing that Venusaur doesn't. Yeah. It has almost nothing that sets it apart from Venusaur, except for, like, After You, which, frankly, is like, not... It's not good enough to justify using it in this format. Like, you would always rather have Venusaur. Like, Gigantamax, especially now that we have Gigantamax Venusaur, I don't think you can justify using Lilligant. Lopunny is garbage. Do not use this Pokemon. Mega Lopunny is a different story. Lopunny is garbage. Do not use. Like, you could maybe do some stuff with, like, Trick, Klutz, Assault Vest. I don't know. It's really bad. It's super bad. Like, it's so bad. Lurantis. Now, Lurantis is a cool Pokemon. They gave it Contrary, and they also give it Superpower and Leaf Storm. So, for those of you who don't know, Superpower, Contrary takes any drops and makes them boosts, and takes any boosts and makes them drops. So, moves like Leaf Storm and Superpower, which lower stats, actually raise stats. However, Lurantis has a lot of things working against it, like mostly its stats. And yeah, I don't think you can justify using it personally. Luxray, I'll put Luxray in the G tier. It might be like generous for Luxray, but yeah, I don't know. Like, it has not all awful things, it's just primarily awful. I don't know that much about Luxray. Like, I remember looking at it. It has some decent moves. But yeah, like, it's really held back by bad stats and I think overall poor move pool. The ability Intimidate is nice. The ability Guts is nice. Rivalry is kind of useless. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't really have much to say about Luxray. Actually, Rivalry was actually used in 2011, as a fun fact. Lycanroc, I'm putting all 3 forms in C. Like, I don't know enough about it. I think it has some potential. They're not awful. They're not good, though. Magnezone? Where did that go? Wait, where did he go? Oh, hello. B tier. B tier for sure. Steel types are really good. I like steel types. Having more steel types in the format is not a bad thing, in my opinion. Magnezone, when you die, like, Magnezone, it struggles because it's 4 times weak to ground and it's relatively slow. However, you can compensate for, like, the speed a little bit with Dynamax, allowing you to, you know, be, like, double your bulk. And although this isn't really going to help you versus ground types, it will help you versus kind of, like, the general... The issue with being slow is you have to take attacks before you deal attacks, and so, yeah, like, because of that, like, Magnezone, it has solid bulk, like, nothing's wrong with the bulk, but... because it's so slow, it often has to take, like, 2 attacks before it can attack every turn. And so Dynamax mitigates that a little bit and takes advantage of Magnezone's very high special attack stat. And, you know, just increases that even more with Dynamax moves. So, Yeah, I don't know. I think it has potential for sure. I think it's a solid Pokemon. Like, you would never be upset to have Magnezone on your team, but it's not like it's definitely worse than Azumarill and Kingdra. Regular Marowak, I'm putting in the D tier. I'm putting in the C tier. Like, it hits really hard. It's not very good, but the real Pokemon we want to talk about is Alolan Marowak. Cool. Wait, no. Alolan Marowak. There we go. I think Alolan Marowak is S tier. This thing is scary. They gave it Poltergeist, which is a very powerful move. Alolan Marowak, like Azumarill, which we talked about earlier, if it holds the Thick Club item, will double its attack stat, and it has not terrible stats as well. Again, it's kind of similar to Magnezone in that it is very strong offensively, but struggles a little bit on the bulk side. Marowak is worse like a bulk in the bulk sense than Magnezone. However, with Dynamax, you get to double your stats. You also increase your offenses, and both Flare and Ghost will increase the next move of that type. Ghost obviously lowering the defense stats of the opponent, and Flare setting up the Sun, which does two things: powers up future max Flares, and also weakens opponent's water moves. So I think Marowak is super, super strong. I would be very surprised if it does not do well this format. Maybe not as good as Amoonguss, but it fulfills a different role. Nothing's as good as Amoonguss, okay, to be clear. But I think Marowak is very, very strong. Mancho, I'm putting in the D tier. It's a solid fake-out user, but it's really outclassed by a lot of other things that we have going on. Right now, it doesn't have the offense to justify using it, like for High Jump Kick Reckless or anything like that. It has Regenerator, but the bulk, it doesn't have enough bulk to really take advantage of that. So, not a great Pokemon. Not terrible. Miltank as well, like, it's not awful. Like, it has decent overall bulk and a recovery move and, like, Thunder Wave, but I wouldn't recommend using it. I like Palisand. I'm putting Palisand in the B tier. People might be mad about that. Palisand, I think, is really underexplored, and with Dynamax, like, Dynamax weakness policy, Water Compaction, Water Shuriken sounds very scary, and I think if you wanted to build a Gimmick team around that, you definitely could. You would effectively be raising your special defense. You would be up to 4, like, getting to +6 in your defense, and you'd be doubling your offenses. And when you consider it a shore up as well, like, I think this thing could be a real nightmare to deal with, especially if you paired it with something with, like, a healing, like Pollen Puff or Life Dew or Heal Pulse or something. So I really think Palisand can be good. Pinsir, E tier, nothing to say about it. Garbage Pokemon. Politoed, S tier, great Pokemon. Opens up a whole new archetype of ways to play Pokemon, and that it gives you Rain. Really good Pokemon, good bulk, good support moves, can be offensive, can be defensive. Overall, phenomenal. I'm putting Poliwrath in the C tier. That's a bit higher than I would normally put it. However, the additions to its move pool, specifically, I think, Close Combat, which it didn't get before, I think it could be good. I'm not comfortable enough with it to put it in the B tier, because I think that it still has some things working against it. However, it's one of the few physical Swift Swim users, and gets some powerful moves. I don't love the type. Actually, no, I do like Water Fighting as typing, now that I think about it. I actually do really like, Water Fighting, so, yeah. I mean, Poliwrath, I think, has potential for the first time in a long time, so, yeah, I think Poliwrath is interesting. Porygon 2, I think, is S tier as well. I'm basically just adding the Pokemon that I liked in 2017, I realized. I actually had a team with Politoed, Porygon 2, Magnezone. I brought it to the first internationals, and I used Marowak a bit in 2017 as well. And I used Klefki, not in 2017. Golduck was used in 2017 as well. They just added a bunch of good 2017 Pokemon. I like Porygon 2. It's going to be the alternative to Dusclops if your team already is weak to Ghost and Dark types, or you don't want Dusclops, or you want something other than Dusclops. I think you run Porygon 2 as your bulky Trick Room setter. Bulky Trick Room setter, it has consistent recovery, unlike Dusclops, who has Pain Split. However, it lacks Nightshade, which is a consistent damage dealing option. However, it also has different abilities and Trace and Download, so in theory, it could be more offensive. It's a good Pokemon. It's super bulky, incredibly tanky, hard to get rid of, and when you could consider giving it defense and special defense boosts using Steel Spiking and Quake, I think it could be really interesting to see how it does. So I think this thing's going to be very good. Porygon Z, I think, is a B-tier Pokemon. Hits extremely hard. Very scary with Dynamax. Max Hyper Beam with Adaptability Porygon Z should be doing, absurd amounts of damage. So I think this thing is definitely good. I don't love Alolan Raichu. I've never liked Alolan Raichu. I like regular Raichu. But I think it could be good. The addition of Rising Voltage and Expanding Force means that it actually has some interesting max moves. Or interesting, moves that are useful in terrain. So I don't know. I think it could be interesting for sure. It's probably closer to a C tier Pokemon. Yeah, actually, I'm not confident enough to put it in the B tier. It's a C tier Pokemon. It has a lot of potential. It's upper C tier for me, but I'm not comfortable putting it out of C tier. Don't use Sandslash. Don't use Base Sandslash. I don't think it's very good. Alolan Sandslash, I think, has a bit more potential. I'm going to put it in the C tier. I personally have some faith in Alolan Sandslash. The thing is, with Dynamax, you have the ability to double your speed without even running Alolan Ninetales. And you also have the ability to raise your defenses. And you also get Quake and Rocks and other interesting move. So I don't think it's a terrible Pokemon. I think, for instance, something you could do is, like, have Swords Dance Alolan Sandslash with the right support, and maybe that would be scary. I'm not super sold on this thing, but I also am not super confident writing it off just yet, so I think it's okay, in conclusion. Scizor, I think, is a B tier Pokemon. My A tier is kind of not really fleshed out. Oh well. Yeah, Scizor, I love Scizor. Scizor single-handedly carried me to my second Nationals win, so I've always had a soft spot for it. It's really fallen off since then. Actually, since that exact tournament, I think it's fallen off and had a lot less results. That was the last time Scizor was, like, phenomenal. Removal of Steel Gem hurt a lot, truthfully. Scizor still has some potential. Like, it's a Steel-type Pokemon. It only has one weakness. You compare it with Rain. They took away U-Turn, which is not great. Oh, wait, no, they took away Bug Bite. Yeah, Bug Bite was really good in Scizor, so I think removing that is actually kind of a big nerf to it, unfortunately. Yeah, Bullet Punch is good, and Technician is good, and Swords Dance is good. It has potential. It's, like, a good Pokemon, but it's not great, and I wouldn't expect to see it getting a ton of usage. Its bulk is also, like, not good enough. Like, if it were way bulkier, then you could run Swords Dance on it and be good. But, like, it's going to be 2-hit KO'd by a lot of, like, moderately powerful special attacks. So, yeah. It also doesn't love to Dynamax because its main power is that it uses Bullet Punch, which is priority. And you lose that when you Dynamax. So, yeah, not great. Scolipede has a lot of potential, in my opinion. Has a lot of things going for it. In a format where, like, speed is hard to come by, a fast Pokemon with speed boost is pretty valuable. Unlike Sharpedo, who's really bad, don't use it. But Scolipede can raise its attack with Swords Dance, and it has Poison offensively, which, you know, is a really good type for dealing with Pokemon like Togekiss. Has some weaknesses for sure. Weak to Rock is not good. This is a terrible Pokemon against Sand. However, versus, like, Dragapult, it actually gets Throat Chop, I think. So, yeah, it has a lot of things going for it. I think it has potential. Not definitely a great Pokemon, but definitely has potential. Oh, singles players, where's this one gonna go? Where's it gonna go? Where singles players, look away. Okay, if you're a singles player, you can just pause and skip again, like, ahead like 20 seconds. Don't use it. It's just bad. Galarian Slowbro, I'm really unsure of. I have no idea. I think it's probably C tier. It has potential, I think. I'm really unclear what to do with this one, to be honest, so that's just a question mark. I think it has potential. I don't expect to see a ton of usage. Poison is not a good typing. And Quick Draw is inconsistent. Slowking, however, I think is B tier. Bulky Water-type Pokemon that has Trick Room. Special Bulk is better in VGC typically than Physical Bulk. Decent special... Actually, pretty good special attack stat, as I recall. Is it 130? It's actually pretty strong, if I remember correctly. Trick Room Setter, Regenerator, Surf, Psychic, maybe Expanding Force. Can Dynamax, can set Trick Room, can switch out to heal health. Not a bad Pokemon at all. I think it's pretty good. Starmie, C tier. Potential this time. Dynamax powers up Starmie a lot. Its stabs make itself more powerful in the future, setting Rain or setting Psychic Terrain. I don't have a ton of faith in it, but I think it has some things going for it, especially in a format where most Pokemon are slower than Starmie, so I don't know. Not terrible. Statlin's D tier. Bulky Intimidate user. Like, it's not horrible. I love Stoutland as a Pokemon. I'll always like Stoutland, but yeah. Like, there's a lot of Pokemon that would do the job better, and it kind of has All My Friends Are Dead syndrome. Talonflame is an A tier Pokemon, I think. I don't like Talonflame. I actually hate Talonflame. It's one of my least favorite Pokemon of all time. However, I think that it probably belongs in the A tier. Tailwind is so good this format. Like, speed control in general, but Tailwind specifically is so incredibly good this format. That, like, having Prankster Tailwind, we've already seen has worked with Whimsicott, and Talonflame also does a very similar role, having Gale Wing's Tailwind. And, yeah, probably, like, Gale Wing's Brave Bird, and it's very fast. I don't know. I hate Talonflame, but I don't know. Like, it's probably good in this format. Tangrowth is D tier. Like, it's not the worst it could be, but it's so much worse than Pokemon like Venusaur. Yeah, like, it's not... It's also a physical attacker. I mean, or it could be special, but I think typically it runs physical. I don't know. It gets Rage Powder, but, like, both Venusaur and Amoonguss do the roles of this thing better, so I would not use it. Tauros I'm actually going to put really high up. I'm going to put it into the C tier when, you know, most people probably feel that it's D or E. The thing about Tauros is it gets Anger Point, and it's actually relatively fast, so when you combine those two things, like... You can use it on some gimmicky teams. If you really want to use Tauros, you can. I wouldn't recommend it per se, but you could use it. And I think the Anger Point set is actually somewhat viable, so we're going to put it higher up. D tier, Tentacruel. Not awful. Good special bulk, but not great either. Water Poison is interesting typing. Like, it's not bad typing per se, but it doesn't do enough, like, offensively. Like, I guess Scald and Sludge Bomb, but, like, it's just going to sit there most of the time, and it's not super favorable in the current metagame, so... Yeah, I don't love it. We're going to put the Urshifu, I think, both of them in A tier. I'm really unclear on how good these things are just yet, but I think they have potential. And I think that, like, their ability is really scary. And just, I don't know, like, I think once people figure out how to really use these things and abuse them, it's going to be pretty terrifying. Volcarona, I'm also going to put in the A tier. Volcarona used to be amazing. It's not as, like, it hasn't done as well recently. It has both Quiver Dance and Rage Powder sets, which are viable. And with the addition of Dynamax, like, Quiver Dance and then Dynamax Volcarona sounds pretty terrifying in my opinion. So, I think it could still be good. Although, yeah, like, it definitely has some weaknesses. And it's not an S tier Pokemon as far as I can tell. But yeah, like, I don't know. It's pretty scary offensively. Or you can run support Volcarona, and Flame Body's pretty good for support Volcarona as well. So it's seen some success across the years. It used to be really good. It kind of fell off a bit. It has a couple Worlds top cuts, at least one I think at Top Cut Worlds in 2016 as a supportive set. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's a cool Pokemon. Wigglytuff I'm gonna put maybe higher than most people would expect. I'm gonna put it in the C tier. Competitive is really good. Competitive is a great ability. Wigglytuff is actually relatively bulky with Assault Vest. It's won a regional before in 2014. And it has good coverage moves as well. It's not a great Pokemon by any means, but it's not a terrible one either. And like it actually is like matches up positively versus Pokemon like Dragapult. Like Dragapult can't hit it with its stabs, and it has, you know, fairy type moves as well. And if you get a boost, you can Dynamax it as well. It's like honestly one of the perfect Dragapult counters because Dragapult can't hit it with Ghost or Dragon moves, and if it hits the partner with a Max Ghost or Max Dragon, it will double Wigglytuff's special attack thanks to competitive. So it's actually like a really good Dragapult counter, or at least a check, because like, yeah, the partner will probably beat it. But yeah, that's Wigglytuff. And then last but not least, I'm putting Zoroark in the C tier. They fixed the way that illusion worked. It used to be bugged. It's not bugged anymore. That's good. It's interesting. Like Dynamax Zoroark probably hits pretty hard, and Max Darkness, you know, boosts into Max Darkness. It forces mind games. I don't hate it. It has some good coverage moves. It's not a great Pokemon by any means. Its stats are really lacking, but you could do some interesting stuff with it, I think. So yeah, I don't hate it. You could definitely catch people off guard. Like maybe you run Trick. Does it get Trick still? I used to get Trick. Like Trick Eject Button Zoroark and have it pretend to be like Dusclops or something. I think, well, Dusclops wouldn't work because of Frisk, but you know, like some kind of like Chandelure or some Ghost type. I think that'd be kind of funny. So, anyway, that's my list. That's where I rank all the new Pokemon that were added in the DLC. Let me know what you think. Let me know if anything seems out of place. I think I did it. I'm relatively happy with how this turned out. I think this is pretty fair to everybody. So, yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to leave a like, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.